Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to break down the incredible science behind one of the absolute most debated foods in human history, the egg. For decades, we've been told to limit them, to fear them, or to just toss out the yolk entirely. Well, today, we are going to look directly at the clinical data to separate fact from fiction, once and for all.
Here's a quick roadmap of what we'll be covering today. We've got 1. The great cholesterol debate. 2. A complete nutritional powerhouse. 3. Brain, eyes, and immunity. 4. Whole eggs versus egg whites. 5. Eggs and type 2 diabetes. And finally, 6. How to eat your eggs.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1, the great cholesterol debate, unscrambling the heart health myth. We really have to start by acknowledging the elephant in the room that has caused decades of dietary confusion for so many of us.
So are eggs actually bad for your heart? It's the age-old question, right? And it all stems from one single fact. A large egg yolk contains about 186 milligrams of dietary cholesterol. Hearing that number naturally made the egg public enemy number one for a very long time. But here's the thing. Human biology is incredibly adaptive. Your liver is basically a master thermostat for cholesterol. It actually regulates its own internal production based on exactly what you eat.
And when we actually look at the data from Keck Medicine, a really surprising truth emerges. For roughly 70% of people, the folks we call non-responders, consuming dietary cholesterol from eggs doesn't raise their blood cholesterol at all. 0. As for the remaining 30%, the hyper-responders, they see only a very mild increase. Plus, studies show that eating 2 eggs a day can actually bump up your HDL, that's your good cholesterol, by 10%. It essentially acts like a broom to sweep the bad cholesterol right out of your bloodstream.
This point is perfectly captured in a medical analysis of World Health Organization guidelines published in the BMJ. It tells us that we simply can't apply blanket bans to whole foods anymore. The health effects of saturated fat vary wildly depending on the specific fatty acid and the actual food source it comes from. So blaming the egg for heart disease while totally ignoring the protective nutritional matrix it sits inside, well, that is frankly just outdated science.
Let's move on to Section 2, a complete nutritional powerhouse, the 72-calorie superfood. Now that we've cleared up the fear around cholesterol, let's take a look at the sheer density of nutrients we're dealing with here.
A single large egg anchors your diet with just 72 calories and a really solid 6 grams of high-quality, complete protein. It's actually widely regarded as one of the most bioavailable and digestible forms of protein in the human diet. That means your body doesn't just pass it through, it absorbs and utilizes almost every single bit of what you're eating to rebuild and repair. And when you finally stop fearing the yolk, you unlock an absolute treasure chest of vitamins. You aren't just getting protein, folks. You're getting vitamin D to help your gut absorb calcium for bone health, zinc to fight off viruses and boost your immunity, and vitamin E, which acts as a powerful antioxidant. Throw in B-complex vitamins, folate, phosphorus, and selenium, and it is, quite literally, nature's multivitamin packed inside one tiny shell.
Which brings us to Section 3, brain, eyes, and immunity. Targeted super benefits. You see, the egg isn't just some generic health food. It actually delivers very specific, targeted compounds that our modern diets are severely lacking. Inside that yolk are 2 incredibly powerful, yet way underappreciated components. First, one hard-boiled egg contains about 147 milligrams of choline. This is a vital building block for your brain that supports memory, metabolism, and even mood. Then, on the flip side, the yolk is absolutely rich in antioxidants called lutein and zeoxants. Think of these almost like internal sunglasses. They actively mitigate UV damage and drastically reduce your risk of cataracts and age-related macular degeneration.
In fact, according to nutritional data, simply eating 2 eggs a day fulfills 5 out of 6 essential eye nutrients. You're hitting almost all of your required nutritional baseline for optimal eye health just with breakfast. It's easily one of the most efficient, natural ways to actively protect your vision as you age, rather than relying solely on supplements.
All right, let's dive into Section 4, whole eggs versus egg whites, the fitness showdown. Now, if you've ever finished a really hard workout, you might naturally reach for egg whites just to avoid the fat, right? Well, a fascinating controlled study out of WashU is completely flipping that fitness script. Researchers took resistance-trained young men and matched their post-workout protein intake exactly. They tested 18 grams of protein derived from whole eggs straight up against 18 grams of protein from purely egg whites.
By matching the protein perfectly, but completely removing the 17 grams of fat found in the whole eggs, they isolated the variables to see exactly what the yolk was doing behind the scenes for muscle recovery.
And the results were totally definitive. Eating the egg within its natural whole food matrix actually triggers superior muscle anabolism, which is really just the scientific term for the muscle-building process. Combining the protein with the fats, vitamins, and minerals in the yolk stimulated post-exercise muscle protein synthesis to a significantly greater extent than just the egg whites alone. The big lesson here? Stop throwing away the yolk if your goal is to build muscle.
Moving right along to Section 5, Eggs and Type 2 Diabetes, Managing Blood Sugar. Now, if you are actively managing your blood sugar, this science requires a little bit more nuance, as historical studies on diabetes risk and egg consumption have sometimes shown conflicting results. But clinical research actually shows that consuming 1 egg per day improves factors associated with glycemic control. Why is that? Because an egg contains virtually 0 carbohydrates and is high in protein and healthy fats. This low glycemic index score keeps you fuller for way longer, which flattens your blood sugar curve and naturally stops you from snacking on sugary foods later in the day. Because of this, they are highly safe to eat in moderation.
But context is absolutely everything here. The real trick is looking at your entire plate. An egg paired with vegetables, maybe some spinach, mushrooms, or salsa, that's a fantastic tool for blood sugar management. But if you fry that exact same egg in trans fat margarine or heavy butter and pair it with a mountain of bacon and heavy cheese, well, you completely shift the health impact entirely. Far too often, the poor egg gets blamed for the bad company it keeps on the breakfast plate.
And here is a super surprising fact for anyone seeking out alternatives. A real fresh egg contains just 0.4 grams of carbohydrates. Barely anything. However, highly processed plant-based egg substitutes can pack up to 25 grams of carbs per serving. If you are diabetic or just actively watching your blood sugar, blindly swapping a natural egg for a highly processed substitute could unexpectedly and drastically spike your sugar levels.
Let's bring it all home with Section 6, How to Eat Your Eggs, Practical Preparation. We're going to conclude with some actionable advice on the absolute best ways to get these incredible benefits onto your plate without compromising your health.
Frying eggs in heavy, processed oils or excessive butter can unnecessarily increase your bad cholesterol. It basically turns a highly nutritious whole food into something completely different. By simply skipping those heavy oils and choosing to boil or poach your eggs for maximum health, you preserve all those vital nutrients. Pair them up with some leafy greens or a quick breakfast salad, and you have just crafted the ultimate super meal.
So, now that you understand the incredible science, the unscrambled truth about cholesterol, and the sheer power of the whole food matrix, it really is time to rethink that breakfast routine. The egg has absolutely earned its nutritional redemption. So I leave you with this final thought. Knowing what you know now, how will you be cooking your eggs tomorrow? Keep learning, stay focused, and we'll see you in the next